Have you ever had that feeling when you start a book where you're like, I have a feeling this is going to be amazing. This is probably going to be 5 stars. So I haven't vlogged in a while. I actually really do enjoy doing vlogs. I just haven't done one in a while. And I am off. Today is June, what is today? Today is Monday, June 6th, and I'm off for the rest of the week. This is kind of like a staycation my husband and I took. We're not really doing too much this week, so I figured why not do a vlog? And I put up on my Instagram, link below if you're not following me on Instagram, but I did an Instagram story of which book I should vlog this week, and the 2 choices were Empire of the Vampire by Jake Kristoff and Pet Sematary by Stephen King. It was a very, very close race. I kept going back and forth, but ultimately Pet Sematary won. I am probably maybe gonna do both of these during this vlog because this is actually not too long, and I do have the audiobook for this as well, so we'll see. But we're gonna start with Pet Sematary. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon. I'm probably gonna make dinner soon, not really doing too much this evening. The rest of the week, not really sure quite yet. Probably just running some errands, and then Thursday through Saturday we are visiting my brother and sister-in-law. They have like a beautiful like waterfront home, so this is my first time visiting their new home. I am super excited about that. We will probably go to a nice waterfront restaurant, and I'm gonna try to fit in seeing Jurassic World this weekend because I am super excited about that movie. So those are just kind of some potential plans, not really sure yet. Maybe do some book shopping. I feel like I haven't been to Barnes & Noble in a while, so we will see. But for now, tonight, I'm gonna start reading Pet Sematary, and I'm kind of scared. Yeah, I've been putting it off for a while, so we'll see how this goes, but I will check in with you guys later. I just read the introduction by Stephen King, so I have this version, and there's an introduction from 2000 that he wrote, kind of a little background about this story. If you don't know, this is, and I honestly don't know too much about this myself, but it's a Stephen King book, obviously, and it deals with grief, and I'm pretty sure the loss of a child and a pet cemetery in the back or near the back of the main character's home. But like I said, I'm literally on page 1. I read the introduction. But it is based on Stephen King's experience when he was staying in Maine, and he lived or was renting a home that was very close to a busy street. And one of the nights that he was there, his daughter's cat was hit by a car and was killed. And in this place, there's also, where he was staying at, there was an actual pet cemetery spelled the same exact way as the title of this book. And there was like cats and dogs, and I think he said a goat was buried there. And so his daughter's cat was hit by like a truck not soon after they moved in. And then the following day, his 2-year-old son was running toward the street. Thankfully, Stephen King can't remember if he grabbed him before he got to the street or if he just kind of fell because he was 2 and like, you know, wobbling along. But that's when he decided to come up with this storyline. What would have happened had his son not stopped, you know, and fell, and rather had been killed. So I love in the introduction, it says from Stephen King, "It may not be the one that scares readers the most based on the mail. I'd guess the one that does that is probably The Shining. But the fear bone, like the funny bone, is located in different places on different people." And I know for me, the reason why I've been putting this book off is because it has the death of a child. So I feel like that is probably a funny bone that is gonna be affected for me. So that's why I put it off. So we'll see. Even just from page 1 in the actual story, chapter 1, page 3. I'm on page 3. I just have that feeling that this is gonna be so good. So I don't know. I just wanted to share that little update. Haven't gotten far. It's dinner time. We are literally having like the simplest dinner possible because I don't feel like cooking tonight. So this is from Wegmans. They're little non pizzas. I don't know how they say that, but little pizzas. And then my daughter really loves these mozzarella sticks from Target. So we're gonna have some of those. Really not healthy, but yummy and quick and easy. And yeah, that's what we'll do now. Vlog at all yesterday. I literally just took advantage of my staycation and have just been laying on the couch and reading, and I have finished Pet Sematary, and boy do I have thoughts. So one of the reasons I also didn't vlog yesterday is because this book is pretty heavy and I felt like I needed to sit on it and process it, just even the parts that I was reading yesterday. And I'll say up front, 5 stars. 5 stars. This book has definitely jumped up to one of my favorite Stephen King books. It was phenomenal, but it is very heavy. It scared me. There were some parts that were scary as well. I'm not going to go into very, detailed information about the storyline, because I feel like, if you do want to read this and you haven't read it, then please do go into it as blind as you possibly can. I saw the movie, the 80s adaptation, probably when I was like 12 years old, so I barely remember it. There was just the main scenes that kind of stick out to my head are a very creepy character that's in that movie. Very creepy character. Still can see her very vividly in my brain. And a scalpel and someone's ankle. Yeah, so if you've seen the 80s movie, you probably very clearly can see those parts. So that's kind of what stuck with me all of these years. And then obviously there's a Pet Sematary, but I didn't really remember too much of the plot. So I'll just give kind of a brief summary of what this book is about. Mostly, won't go into too much what's more than on the back of the book. It is about Louis Creed and his family. They are coming from Chicago to move into Maine, because Stephen King loves Maine. And it's a small town in Maine, and he's a doctor, so he's coming to work for a university. And they're moving into their new house. It's him, his daughter Ellie, and I think she's about 5 years old, his infant son, who is, I don't know, maybe like 1 years old. His name is Gage, and then his wife Rachel. And they move into this home, and as soon as they move in, they meet their neighbor, who is across a very busy street that they live in front of, and his name is Judd. He lives across the road. I was gonna try to mimic how they say it in the audiobook, but I'm not even gonna try. It's a very Yankee way to say road. That's all I'll say. I'm not even gonna try to mimic it because it'll sound terrible, but it's sticking in my head because I just finished the audiobook. Gosh, what was I even saying? Yeah. So they very quickly get to know Judd and his wife, Norma, and Judd quickly becomes a kind of father figure to Louis, because you learn basically like in the first paragraph almost, that Louis didn't really know his dad, didn't really know his grandfather, never really had any father figures. So Judd becomes that to him. And Judd was born in 1900, so this book was written in the 80s, so Judd was born in 1900 exactly. He's like 83, I think, in this book, but a very, with it, perfectly, healthy 83-year-old. And the Creeds also have a cat named Church, named after Winston Churchill, and very soon after they move in, Judd decides to take them and show them the pet cemetery that is behind Louis's house. I feel like they were walking forever to get there. I want to say it's almost like 2 or 3 miles up a hill behind their house. So it's not like right in their backyard, but so he takes them up there. He shows them his pet cemetery where all of like the neighborhood kids or, families would bury their pets. after they died. So they come back from that, and Ellie, the 5-year-old, is very, very traumatized because she is now afraid that something's going to happen to her cat Church. So she has a lot of questions about death. And Rachel, the mom, gets very upset with Lewis because he's, giving her very factual information. We're all going to die. It's not hopefully going to happen anytime soon, but it's just the reality. And Rachel gets very upset. She wants to protect Ellie, doesn't really want her to know too much about death because Rachel had a significantly traumatic event that happened in her childhood that Stephen King does a fantastic job describing. That is what kept me up last night. That specific scene in the book is very, very traumatic and creepy. So you quickly learn that they both have very different views on death and how, Lewis is a doctor, so it's probably something obviously that he deals with a lot. And then Rachel had this thing happen to her when she was younger that she clearly has PTSD from. So this book is very heavy on the theme of death and grief and how you handle it, whether you're religious or not. At the end of the day, we're all gonna die. And when you sit with that in your brain and really, really think about it, it can freak you out. You can very quickly become just terrified. And Stephen King does a great job of making you feel that way. So I would not read this book if you have a fear of death or there's significant grief that you've dealt with, please, because it's going to put you in a dark place really quickly. So just that is the main theme of it, death and grief and how we all deal with it. And then obviously there's certain things that happen in the book that I'm not going to go into because please read it if you are able to. Let's talk about the characters, the pacing, and the storyline in general. The characters. I just feel like, and I just recently read 11/22/63 by Stephen King. These aren't the first books that I've read by him, but it's been many years since I've read his books. And he has such a phenomenal way of making you feel like you really truly know these characters. Like Judd's character was probably my favorite in this book. He was just so tangible. I literally felt like I could go across the road and have a beer with him and listen to him talk about, the 1900s and him growing up in this neighborhood because he's lived there his whole life. He literally knows pretty much everyone in the town. And even when he is talking and describing things, the way King does it, it's the dialogue in his stories is so, it literally sounds like it's not forced, I'll say. It's not forced. He'll talk about something that happened in a town, so-and-so, oh yeah, who lived, right across from the library that used to be there for this long. And to some people that may be too descriptive or it's just too much, but I loved it because it really makes you sit in the story and feel like you're actually there. So that was one of my favorite parts of it. Sorry, there was something else I wanted to talk about characters. Wow. That was my dog. She's snoring. I'm sorry. Golly. Anyway, so the characters, so Stephen King does this fantastic job of making you really, really grow to love the family, the Creed family in general. And Lewis himself is such a relatable dad. I loved in the very beginning when they're driving to Maine and they're all just, obviously been in the car for a while and they're probably just all getting on their, on each other's nerves. And there's this little inner monologue that he has where he's like, you know what? I'm just going to drop you guys off and I'm just going to drive up 90 or down 95 and go to Disney World. And you guys can keep the freaking cat too. And I'm just going to do my thing. I'm like, if you have kids, you can relate. I'm just gonna go somewhere by myself and you guys can do whatever the hell you want. So I love it's Stephen King. He just has this fantastic way of writing characters. And even the 5-year-old, there was times where she was really getting on my nerves, but then you realize, okay, she's 5 and she's also really having real emotions about just death in general and dealing with the little brother. And then later in the book, I really loved her character later in the book. So I just forgot that. I wanted to make sure that I mentioned
more about the characters and how Stephen King, you know, did a phenomenal job with just making you really love these characters. When tragedy starts to happen, you're really like feeling it. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. The storyline itself was fantastic. The freaking ending and the epilogue, so like the last 100 pages are insane. The epilogue had me like, what the fuck? Like, is that it? That's how it ends? Are you kidding me? It was crazy. So story was fantastic. The pacing, I will say, for me, I thought it was good. There are parts of it, specifically in the, I want to say in like the, right before the last 100 pages where it gets like kind of nonstop, just like things are happening. When it gets to a part where Lewis is thinking about doing something specific, when he does start to go and start actually making actions towards doing this thing, King is very, very detailed about it, literally every step that he is taking. And for me, I thought it was great, but I can definitely see where some people may find that part long-winded and just too much. So for me, the pacing was great, but I can see where people may have some issues with that. So just be aware of that. If you don't like too much detail, I mean, you could probably skim a lot of it and not miss really much of, you know, the storyline itself. But I love all that. So without giving, you know, too much more away, that's really all I can say about it. I highly recommend this book. If, you know, you don't have triggers for grief and death, then please do definitely read this. It's a well-loved Stephen King book. I've obviously taken very many years to read it. Thankfully, it came up on my wheel of books that I wanted to read this year, so I'm very happy that I did it. I will definitely revisit it at some point. It's one of those books that I feel like I could reread again because you probably missed so many little details from it. And yeah, that was a very quick reading vlog for Pet Sematary. So with that being said, because this took me literally like 48 hours to complete and I still have some vacation left, we're just gonna keep this party going and I'm gonna start reading The Empire of the Vampire. I don't know how much of it I will get through because I actually do have a couple busy days for the rest of the week. We are traveling to Southern Maryland tomorrow to stay with my brother and sister-in-law on their beautiful like waterfront home. So hopefully I will be able to get to some of this. Not sure how much activities we have planned, but I am gonna start it and I'm looking forward to it. I feel like after this book, between Pet Sematary and Empire of the Vampire, I'm probably very much gonna need to read a romance book after this because I've heard this one is pretty gory and I don't know if it's scary. I don't know too much more about it, but we are gonna start this one tonight and I will check back in with you guys later.